Okay then, so back on the YouTube channel Vibes, or podcast if you're listening to this via just audio. And today I'm going to answer 10 questions about the Amazon Jungle Ultra that I recently completed. And if you're new here and you don't know me, I'm Stephen Bell. And quite recently I completed a 230 kilometer race in the Amazon jungle. It was 5 stages, self-supported. And for someone that's not specifically a runner, it was obviously quite the challenge, but one of the main reasons that I did it. And today, instead of just filming in the office, I thought I'd just come and sit at the beach. So I live on an island, Walney Island. It's in Cumbria, just off Barrow-in-Furness. And yeah, with the beautiful weather recently, you can see the beach and the ocean just over there. So yeah, I thought, what better than to just sit up here, can of Red Bull, the best flavour, iced vanilla berry, and answer some questions. So let's get into it. So the first question is, why did I do it? Now, obviously, when I first signed up to it, people were asking me, why are you doing this? And then after I completed it, people were still asking me, why on earth did you do that? So there was 2 reasons. The first one being I wanted to raise some money for charity. So I raised around about £1,500, I think, for Lewy Body Society, which is a dementia charity. It's a type of dementia that my dad suffered with before he passed away, so it's something very close to home. So yeah, primarily to raise some money for that, but also from a personal perspective, I really wanted to do something that would be just a massively difficult physical, emotional and mental challenge for me to kind of undertake and do. And that's just from the perspective of me finding out more about myself. So typically these days, like, we can get stuck in comfort. And I believe that that's like the worst place to be in any level. So yeah, I wanted to feel pain. I wanted to feel hurt. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to be in that situation, you know, where you're just like, you're physically exhausted, you're mentally exhausted, and you don't know if you can go any further. And I wanted to feel that level of pain, again, to see if I was actually capable. But I think that, like I say, the lesson there is that we do need to be doing hard things. And I think that what we get from that as a personal development perspective is super, super important. So yeah, raise money for charity and do hard things is the answer really to why I did that. The next question, what did training look like in the build up to it? So anyone that's kind of close to me, that either trained with me or that I've coached, will kind of know this, but there was a period, I think it was about 12 weeks out, that I stopped running for about 4 weeks because I was having some issues with heart rate and stuff, and I couldn't really figure out like high levels of fatigue. And I thought that I was just tired, because a few weeks before that I'd ran a Hyrox PB. Then the following weekend I'd ran my first 50k ultra, and I'd never even done a marathon before that. So it was obviously quite a lot in kind of the space of 7 days. So I thought it was just that. Anyway, it turns out that I had low iron. So training the build up wasn't ideal. Now, I don't say that to make excuses or anything like that. It's just a reality of how my prep went, and that's just a reality of dealing with that as well. So training leading up to it wasn't the best. I was probably averaging about 50k a week, but I was doing bike and Stairmaster sessions on top of that as well. But with a background of, like, I've always trained, I'm relatively strong, I can deal with fatigue quite well, I can recover quite fast. So the multi-day event, that structure suited me, because every day I was waking up pretty much fine. From a recovery aspect, like I say, I can recover really quick. So yeah, that's kind of how the training looked. But I also did have a humidity chamber set up in the gym. So funnily enough, it was a grow tent, what you'd normally grow weed in, or tomatoes, whatever you're interested in. And I sealed that up, put some heaters in there, put a humidifier in there, and I'd sit on the bike for like an hour. And that was getting me used to having the low oxygen, high humidity, which definitely helped when I got up to altitude, but then also lower in the jungle in that humidity. I dealt with it pretty much fine. So yeah, that was kind of what training looks like. In the lead up to it, I could have done way more volume if I was able to, or would like to have, but simply wasn't able. And it was about getting to the start line as fit and healthy as possible, as opposed to trying to push training in the lead up to it. Number 3, question 3, what was the hardest bit? So I think it was more, obviously it was a physically challenging expedition. It was super difficult. But for me, it was the things like the admin. So I'm not really used to stuff like that. So that's like putting your hammock up, making sure you've got all your kit right, making sure that your sleeping bag doesn't get wet, making sure that your hydration's absolutely perfect across all 5 days and the weeks before. And just dealing with that sort of humidity and tiredness overall in terms of like central nervous system fatigue. I think that they were what I found the most hard or the most challenging about the entire thing, because it's not something, like I say, that I'm used to. Question number 4. So what kit did I use? I won't list it all because it'd be very boring, but clothing was Through Dark. Socks, I used Danish Endurance, and I never got a blister. So I've never had a blister, never lost a toenail. So take from that what you will, but yeah, Danish Endurance socks, absolutely brilliant. Technology, I used Garmin. Footwear, I used the Ultra Olympus 6. Now, I've just ran trails in them for as long as I can remember. I've not really used any other trail shoes, so I just went with what was comfortable, but they're good for me because I'm relatively heavy, and they've got like a really wide base, and they've got a 0 drop on them, so you're very stable on them. Probably not the best for speed, but clearly not what I was going for in such a long event. In terms of the hammock, I used the Hennessy Jungle, the Jungle Expedition one, with like the extra large Rainfly, which was really good because it did rain one of the nights and most people got absolutely soaked, but the extra Rainfly kept me completely bone dry, which is like a massive component is keeping your kit dry, especially like your sleeping bag and your hammock. So yeah, that worked well. I can't remember the sleeping bag brand, but it was one with like a duvet cover on it as opposed to like a zip. Worked really well because obviously if it got too hot in the night, you could kind of just whip that open and allowed some ventilation there, so that was good. And yeah, I think that's about it. I had some other cool bits like I think it's a Leatherman, multi-tool and things like that. But yeah, loads of different types of kit. And so question 5, this is a really good one. So do I regret not taking the long course on day 5? So just to add some context to that, on days 3, 4 and 5, there was checkpoints and cut-offs. So if you didn't make the cut-off, the checkpoint at a certain cut-off time, you were told to do a short course. Now, the short course was typically between 8 and 10k shorter than the long course. Okay. Now, days 3 and 4 obviously made it fine. Day 5, I missed the cut-off by about 2 hours. Now, the staff at the checkpoint phoned through to the race director, who then come back and said, tell Stephen if he still wants to do the long course, he can do it. Okay, so I had to make a decision at that point on whether I wanted to do the long course, which I think was about 22k more, or take a 12k or 13k loop back to the finish. So that was a decision that I then had to make in that moment. Now, the extra 10k or 9k, whatever it was, of the long course was like 4 or 5k up and then the same coming down the other side. It was getting dark and I would have been up there till maybe about 2, 3 in the morning, maybe even longer based off of how I was moving. Because when I woke up on day 5 morning, my ankles were that swollen, I couldn't get them in my shoes and I was in worlds of pain. So I just walked day 5, like literally just walked. Like my ankles stopped working, my body was just broken, which I kind of knew would happen at some point just based off of not doing enough volume in the lead up to it in terms of the training, which is just something that I had to deal with. So anyone that's close to me knows that I was saying I probably wouldn't make it past day 3. So the fact that Thursday night, which was day 4 evening, I was sat there and we got some signal in camp and I realised I was in 18th or 19th position. I think there was like 65 runners that started, something like that. So I felt in a really good position and my body felt really good. So I thought I'm going to get up day 5 and I'm going to really give it some and try and break the top 15. Woke up day 5, ankles were just finished. So I really struggled. So that final day at that checkpoint when I had to make that decision, I decided to do the short route back to camp, back to the finish. So I was like 9k short of the full distance. And the only reason why I took that short route as opposed to the long one is because I've got kids. Now, that might sound like a really easy excuse to give, but when you're looking at going up in the jungle, in them sort of hills, the terrain that we were navigating was absolutely insane. For me to do that and put myself in such a risk when I've got kids wasn't worth it. I couldn't even walk properly. I was using poles basically as crutches. Like I was finished. I'd already done about 50 odd K like that. I think there was 2 people behind me that were also suffering with injuries, but like I was wrote off, like the body just wasn't working. So for me to be up on a mountain in the middle of the Amazon jungle on my own in the dark at like 3 a.m, maybe even later by the time I was trying to come down the other side, in the condition that I was in, could have put myself in a very bad situation. And then obviously staff would have had to have rescued, helicopters would have potentially rescued me. So yeah, the situation I was in when I've got kids wasn't happy. If I didn't have kids, I'd have done it and just trekked through it. But no, that was like the honest truth, and that was like a reflection on myself of like, I think just understanding where my limit was and knowing that I had to make a sensible decision, not just for me, but for other people. So yeah, no, I don't regret it, is the very short answer to that. Number 6, how did I structure nutrition? So I went for around about 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day. I used Expedition Foods freeze-dried meals. I'd have 800 calories in the morning for breakfast. It was usually like an oats one. 1,000 calories in the evening. I'd have 2 real meal bars per day, which were 600 calories a piece. That gave me 3,000 calories dead on every day. And then I'd top the rest up with gels kind of like as I'm running. Was it enough? Probably not, because this probably comes back to a training factor as well, is that I wasn't fat adapted because I wasn't doing big enough durations, and everything that I did was really highly fed on carbohydrate. So my body, when I was running out of carbs, wasn't fat adapted well enough to sustain the effort that I was putting in. So then that's just a learning curve of multi-stage races. Like, it was the first one I'd done. So yeah, I think that I probably could have done more calories. However, training in future will be very different going into them sort of races, to understand that when I am low calorie, I can still function and give the level of output that I needed. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. And then in terms of hydration, I was averaging around about 500 milligrams in the sodium tablet per hour. But obviously plus there was like salt and things like that in the gels and the real meal bars, so probably a little bit more than that overall. Didn't get cramp too bad at any point. I think I had it a little bit on the last day, but yeah, for the most part I was pretty much fine. But I'd practiced that and, you know, ran through it. Number 7, what was the lowest and highest moments in the jungle? So this is funny because I think that there was one moment that was ultimately my lowest and highest at the same time. And the reason for that is because I was around about, I think it was about 40k deep on day 5. So bear in mind, my ankles are knackered. I'm just using poles to like kind of maneuver my way through things. And we had about, I think it was about 8k in a river. So up this river. Now, obviously, when you're in the river, you can't really see what you're standing on. So my ankles are just rolling constantly. Like, I was in bits, absolutely in bits. And I remember being stood there in the middle of this river, and I was maybe slightly delirious, and I was looking around and I was thinking, I don't know if I can get through this. Like, I don't know if my ankles are going to work well enough for me to even get to the next checkpoint. And in that moment, there was an incredible low point. But very shortly after, within seconds, I remembered that that right there was exactly what I was asking for from that event. That moment is what I wanted. I wanted incredible pain. I wanted to test myself physically and mentally. I wanted to know what I was capable of. I wanted to know, can I keep going in them hard moments? And that just brought this huge high over me, and this massive sense of like, this is what you asked for. This is the exact thing that you asked for coming out here and doing this. So yeah, I think that both of them things, that moment was the lowest and the highest point. I hope that makes sense. Number 8, what got me through it? So this one, obviously thinking about my dad and all the other people that suffer with dementia. This is obviously the charity that I raise money for. What I was going through in any of them difficult moments was fractions of what people like my dad would have gone through with having dementia and like navigating that before he passed away. The challenges that I was facing were this small compared to what he'll have been through. So that was one of the things. The next thing that I was thinking of was my kids, the example that I would want to set to them, and that's about doing difficult things and overcoming adversity and doing challenge and doing the best you can and being honest with yourself and pushing hard. And that was another thing that I just kept thinking of. So there was my dad, my kids, and then my partner Beth, because this was one of the things that really did like kind of make me laugh in the moment, because women, when they give birth, it's meant to be the most painful thing in the world, and as men we're never going to experience that, but we can kind of just, we view it as like a thing that a woman just does, like women just give birth, that's just like natural, it's what they're kind of built to do. But I also had some reflection points around, like, I've seen my partner in labour twice, and the pain that she went through in labour was drastic compared to what I was going through. So I had some sore ankles at work, weren't working properly. So yeah, I was kind of focused on other people and what they'd been through, and then comparing that to myself of what I had to go another 20k in the jungle with some sore ankles. It wasn't really a big thing to me by that point. So yeah, I think that's what kind of got me through. And I think the lesson within that is, like, sometimes you do have to go to them deep, dark places. There was obviously deeper thoughts around all of that within it. But you're definitely more capable than, you know, what you initially think. Number 9, what did crossing the finish line feel like? This was a mad one. So the very first instance, it was disappointment. And that was disappointment that I hadn't done the long course, that I hadn't fully completed the 230k. I was like 9 kilometers short. So that first point, like I say, it was disappointment. But then shortly after, when I could reflect, when I'd sat down, ate a boatload of pizza, and I was reflecting, I become incredibly proud of what I'd achieved. And the reason why I was so proud is because I knew that I give all of that my everything. On that day 5, when I got up and my ankles were so swollen and I couldn't fucking walk, and all of them things were happening, I could have easily dropped out that day. I could have easily said, look, I've raced to day 4, I've done exceptionally well, and that's me done, my body's not working anymore. But the fact that I didn't, and that I went on through day 5, like I say, I know I give what I could, and that gives that incredible sense of pride within, and obviously raising money for charity as well, and supporting other guys on the run and things like that. So yeah, I was truly proud of myself for what I did there, and that's not something that I've kind of come across being like super proud of my efforts before, apart from with a few things in life. So that was nice. Number 10, finally number 10. What does 230k, or 221 in my case, through the jungle teach about business and life? So I've got a business lesson and a life lesson. The business lesson is that we need to think in checkpoints, because a lot of time as business owners, we focus on the end point. Now that's just like a massive, super far distant goal. So for me, it was 230 kilometers. If I was going into that race thinking, right, I've got 230 kilometers to go, obviously that would be a massive challenge. But when each day you're just thinking checkpoint, 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 and that's how we can break business into projects, checkpoints, milestones, and I think that's quite a good analogy. The life lesson would be, the journey's always better than the finish. Now that's something that you'll have all heard before, like people say this all the time, but it's so true. Like if you think of anything where you've tried to achieve something in life, the journey's always better. So whether it's like you buy a new car, so I'm sat in my new car now, and when I bought this, I was super looking forward to it, really wanted to drive it, can't wait for it to come, and then it arrives, bit of like a buzz, drive it around the block, and that's it. You're kind of like back to square one. You're not really elated about it anymore. And like I say, with the jungle, even though there was that sense of pride once I finished, the journey through the jungle was a million times better than crossing that finish line. And like I say, we can apply that to our life in general. And the thing is, we need to enjoy the journey. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was, I can say, 10 questions, some kind of lessons in there, gives you a bit of an insight into my thought process and kind of how I was thinking about navigating that. I'm going to be producing a lot more long form content like this, so I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any requests of what you want to see, please do just let me know. Other than that, like the video, drop me a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.